From next year, new cars sold in Australia could be subject to new emissions standards. The goal is to drive emissions down and accelerate the uptake of electric vehicles. The rules will impose a cap on the total emissions that can be produced by any one manufacturer's fleet of cars. No specific models of cars will be banned. Some in the automotive industry are warning, though, consumers could face higher prices on popular models. Let's get to our guest on this. Shadow Minister in the area, Climate Change and Energy, Ted O'Brien. Thanks for your time. So what do you make of these three options? Any of these appeal to you in particular when you're going through them?
No, Tom. I think context really counts here. We are in a cost of living crisis and people are doing it tough, very tough. And I just don't think there are many assets, many investments more important to a family than the vehicle, the car. It costs them an absolute bomb. What the government has come out with, they've called a cost of living measure. I mean, seriously, you've got to call it for what it is.
It can be pretty cheap to run.
It's an absolute lie for them to say it's a cost of living measure. At the end of the day, this will drive cost up and it will minimise choice. It's an emissions reduction measure, and that's okay. But they could at least just be honest with the Australian people. The whole thing's been set with this narrative that it's a cost of living measure as if the Australian people are dumb, and I just think it's offensive.
When you say drive prices up, evidence of that? I mean, we want to see the government modelling. I know you're going to call for that. Fair enough. We had the AAA in here as well that said to do that. Don't you want to see that and go, oh, okay, maybe this stacks up because here's the modelling and, you know, various departments say it's all okay.
I would love to see the modelling, Tom, and so if you can organise that for us, I'll be very grateful.
My point is, don't you need to?
No, I know your point. I know your point, but I do want to make that point first. They must release the modelling because nobody believes this government. Nobody believes this is a cost of living measure. In fact, it's the opposite. When it comes to the government suggesting that it will drive costs down, they're not talking about the full life cycle of a vehicle. They're not talking about the purchasing price of the vehicle. They're silent on that. Maintenance costs, insurance costs, none of this have they talked about. The only thing they say that
maintenance costs go down a lot once you go electric, don't
they? The only thing they're talking about is running costs. Indeed. And these are the things the government are not talking about. And if they release the modelling, all of this should be in there. But until they do, they cannot be believed. It's an absolute lie.
The alternative you're working on, would there be any form of efficiency or emissions standards under a coalition?
So you know, when Labor came out with this, Tom, last year, we were very quick as a coalition to say we're ready to engage. We will be constructive. And we're also clear on what it is we're looking out for. We wanted to make sure that any emissions standard would minimise cost, would maximise choice, and have a genuine impact on emissions.
We also need to not get left around compared to the rest of the world, right?
Like, so you've got to strike that balance.
Russia from developed economies that don't have one.
But the issue being debated is not should there be an emissions standard. We've already said we're happy to engage constructively on that. The question is the detail. But happy to engage constructively isn't, we'll definitely have one. That's a bit different. You're saying you would have one, you're just figuring out what sort. Is that what you're saying? No, we are saying show us the modelling and we will engage constructively. You've got to strike the balance between those three.
You just said to me the debate isn't whether we'll have one, but then you didn't commit to having one.
Well, the government's the government of the day, and the government says it wants to introduce one. If we were adamantly opposed, Tom, we would have said so from the get-go. We would have said from the get-go. But what we've said is show us the modelling. You need to strike that right balance. Otherwise, families, tradies, households, they all cop it in the neck on this stuff.
Could it be a good thing if we actually use, some of these bigger vehicles that have increasingly become the choice of Australians? Maybe they're just the choice because they go, oh, great, bigger's better. Maybe it's not always. Easier to fit into a car spot. Bigger isn't always better. Sometimes they're less safe on the road, some of these big cars as well.
I think it depends, Tommy. I mean, your personal views will be different from mine probably with the vehicle, right?
You like a big car?
And I think with a new baby at home, the cars we are looking at might have to be bigger. But the point is you have to put the consumer at the centre. And Labor has failed to put the consumer at the centre. If it had, it would be striking the right balance between cost, choice and emissions reduction. It's not.
Albeit you need to see the modelling before maybe jumping to that conclusion?
No, I think we can jump to that conclusion now because they've been outright lying, calling this a cost of living measure. I mean,
maybe it is once we see the modelling.
Well, the Minister, Catherine King, was on radio this morning. She could not answer questions directly on this, how it actually brings down costs for consumers. And until they release the modelling, this is a lie, as everybody else has called it.
Ted O'Brien, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yours too. Thanks, Tom.